You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Global Trade This Week, a very special edition, after-school special edition, with both myself, Doug, and our good friend Keenan, our kid behind the keys. And we had a bit of a scheduling miscommunication. I guess I wasn't going to be here, which what if I had known, I would still be in bed, if I'm being honest. But I'm happy to have three floating heads on the video this week and excited that we all get to pick some topics and talk about them. Exciting. I don't know, Keenan. I'm not used to you being on camera. I'm just going to be honest.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I'm not used to having an after-school special at 7 a.m., but here we are, and we're going to start the day with an after-school special.
So are you in Colorado, Doug?
I am, yeah. I was just saying that both Keenan and I have like 3/4 zip sweaters with a collar.
You're the finance bro look today. Yeah.
Yes.
Finance bro.
It's not a vest. It's not a Patagonia vest. No shade on Patagonia.
Yeah, got it. I don't know what this is, but yeah, it's fun. Pete, you were out last week on assignment, and I got some miscommunication. But to the benefit of our listeners and viewers, you get a three shot of rock and roll, a triple shot of rock and roll today.
It's kind of like when you watch NFL Red Zone and there's three teams about to score at the same time. I'm sure it's overwhelming for people how exciting this is. So we got a lot to cover with three topics from three different people and a huge expanded halftime today. So I guess, Doug, with that being said, why don't you kick it off, pal?
All right. Well, we always make some fun references to TV shows or movies. And I know I've used this one before, but it is so relevant on this topic. It's the old Jan Brady, Marsha on the wonderful Brady Bunch. But this is a take on EVs, electric vehicles, and specifically to trucks, right? We've seen it. We've talked about it. How are the EV trucks going to play out into our logistics world, right? And I think that we've been focused so much on long haul trucking, point A to point B. How do we get from San Francisco to Denver? There's not enough infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, which is absolutely critical, not to mention rules, regulations, and compliance that's coming down the road that may be unattainable for that, right, to have cross-country. So it seems incredibly obvious and simplified, but there is a company that is getting in the electric vehicle market, Nevoya, and they are putting all their chips in one basket related to electric vehicles. And they're focusing on LA, makes sense. They're focused on short-haul drayage and local deliveries in the LA basin. And I was looking at this, and they're like, yeah, it is such a basic concept of how to deploy electric vehicles and electric trucks. I think it's pretty impressive. So, trying to deal with the underlying problem. There's this boom and bust cycle. Everybody's super hyped on EVs, and then it loses some momentum. And then everybody's got this tractor called Tesla and PepsiCo. Kudos to them, but they have a fleet that's mostly for show, and we're out there. So I'm interested to see this company, how they're progressing. And I think just like electric vehicles were paramount, and now we're seeing EVs going into hybrids, right? Where you got the gas for the range anxiety, and then you got the plug-in part for how to make yourself feel good. Is that let's not focus on the long haul. Let's focus on the short haul, the drayage, the local deliveries, the pickup and delivery, as you said. So it fits. It's economically viable for that market. It's not this huge footprint. It fits in the market, and the regulatory and environmental pressures, especially in California, are escalating. So here's a niche. So I'm giving a little shout out to Nevoya with what they're doing, and I think it will be a good model. As simple and basic as it sounds, Pete. Have you heard of this company, or do you have any take on electric trucks being utilized in that fashion?
I hadn't heard about this until literally 3 minutes ago, but it does make sense to deploy that way. We're struggling as an industry to find a place for electric trucks, and the main reason for that, we've talked about again and again, the weight of the truck versus the weight of the cargo and how that limits your ability to make money and moving things. So it's a difficult investment. So anyway, you can find a way to make it work. It's only going to make them less expensive and keep the technology evolving with it. I'm a fan of anything that does that. So I don't know specifically about this particular company, Doug, but what I will say is if they're going to further the technology through adoption, mostly pushed by California law, it's best for everybody.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Katie, you got comments on this one?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of how different alternative fuel vehicles, especially in the pressurized hydrogen or sometimes even the natural gas compressed type vehicles, they end up doing better in applications where it's kind of a fleet, shorter distance. Maybe it's a waste management in a certain region. Maybe it's just this little facility over here, because then they can do the infrastructure to recharge it. Then, yeah, to your point, they're not going the super long distance where they can't compete with the energy density and weight carrying capacity ratios of gasoline or diesel. So yeah, we'll see. And if there are extra tax incentives or just regulations, hey, if you want to operate on the West Coast ports and do this sort of things, you have to have electric, then maybe those tax policies or regulations will help, to your point, Pete, make it financially feasible in the first little bit. Then maybe they can make it more effective if they prove their case and win over other economic situations, decision making at ports around the world that don't have those policies in place. So we'll see.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I don't know. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm trying to figure out who should go next.
I'll go first just so we can save Pete for last.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. One thing I saw reading around researching for this was an update on the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Hadn't seen any updates on it in a while, and I'm just curious, having not seen too many situations like this. I saw a headline number of 102 million and was shocked because that seemed very, very low. That number 102 million is actually just going to the U.S. government, specifically the Coast Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's not a done deal yet. There's still ongoing lawsuits with the families of those killed during the incident, and then as well as the city of Baltimore with the cost of the bridge. That's not touched at all in this 102, as well as then all the financial impacts that hit the whole Baltimore area, tons and tons of businesses and individuals. So we'll see what the overall number is. I saw the 102 and was aghast at how low that number is, because 102 million isn't what it used to be here in 2024. But it seems like that's just the first decision. Something is moving and there is more to be decided. I don't know if you guys have heard any updates or, similar to me, hadn't heard about this at all or have different expectations of how this is going to go and play out.
I spent most of last week in Maryland. So I was actually, I was on the Eastern Shore and then all through northern parts of Maryland and then in York, Pennsylvania. It came up a lot. You know, it's one of those things talking about the weather when you live there. It's like, hey, how about that bridge, you know? And hearing that people don't expect it to be fully operational again until 2027, that was realistically, I guess it's not that off if you think about rebuilding that bridge. But I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop on economic inputs from the state of Maryland. I'm sure they're going to get sued by all kinds of parties, probably the longshoremen. They're probably going to get sued by carriers, by freight forwarders. The whole world's going to come after these guys, and limiting their liability is very difficult to do with the way that maritime laws are set up. And now the more they look into it, the more it appears that it was allegedly the carrier at fault. You know, they had not done what they should have done to keep that vessel safe. This is going to be a multi-billion dollar settlement by the time it's all done. And it will have reached into all kinds of different pockets and put money in the hands of people to try to make them whole again, that have been impacted by this. So yeah, again, I thought the same thing, 100 million, like, you know, there are major league pitchers that get paid that. That's not that much money. But it was when I looked deeper into it, I realized there's a lot more happening behind it.
Yeah. Well, I think, hey, my 2 cents is ditto and ditto, right? It's crazy in this day and age that 102 million, which is an insane amount of money, is like, really, that's it? You know, I think that there's so many entities, you know, I won't be, say the same thing over, but everybody wants their pound of flesh. There's a lot of entities impacted. Everybody's going to go after it. So this is tip of the iceberg type of stuff. So we'll have to see.
One follow-up comment on this, just to kind of look future forward. Pete, love to hear your insight, having some merchant marine background. And Doug, want to throw this out just to bait you a little bit. With the unlimited liabilities that this company's facing, because it's not just going to be the 102 million, at what point in the future will carriers, owner-operators of these vessels switch over to more automated driving? Pete, you may know what level of automation's already on these ships, and you have to have decision makers, but could there be, similar to the arguments I've heard around Tesla or other electric vehicles that can drive themselves, eventually will the insurance demand that there's automation and robots driving compared to a human that I don't even know what the part they messed up in preparing and doing that? They're still going to have to be humans unless it's all the Tesla robots doing the maintenance. Yeah, I guess kind of prompting out there, when is automation going to limit the liability? And then these carriers are going to, well, we have robots doing this.
It's already very, 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 very automated. So I mean, very, very automated. You get on a watch right now, from what I understand again, and there's so much capacity for automation because you're going in one direction for the most part for a day or two sometimes. It's incredible. Where the problem comes in is things break. And until these robots are able to make repairs, and who knows, maybe they will one day, it's going to be very difficult to completely eliminate people on it. I do foresee a world where ships in the future, maybe when they make the safe water buoy, when they're 20 some odd miles off the coast, you take more of the people off. Like there comes a point where someone comes to the helicopter and takes people off, or they leave with a harbor pilot, and then there's a very limited crew who's there to deal with catastrophe. But when they come to the port of where they're going to arrive, same thing. There's like a local group that comes on there. But I think that's a more realistic level of cargo that's going to be highly automated than aircraft and trucks. It could happen pretty quickly, and it wouldn't surprise me. It's just the fact that crap breaks on a ship at sea all the time.
Great insight.
Yeah. I think the harbor pilot, right, I didn't realize this until, I don't know, one of the shows we were doing research on, but they got a local, I'll just dumb this down being a landlocked kid from Kansas. Harbor pilot jumps on the boat, takes that final mile in because he knows the nuances of the port and the time of day and everything else. So I don't know if that would ever change, because I'm sure that's a union gig and tied to it. But I could see once you get out of that aspect, the port, you're in the open waters, just flip a switch and autopilot. It sounds like it's a lot of that's already there, Pete.
If most kids when they were 17 or 18 knew that they could one day be a harbor pilot, maritime academies would be flooded with applicants. It is the best paying, best job I think you can possibly. I have a lot of friends from school that are members of pilot associations, and they're making 7 figures plus, a year, working maybe 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks off, or a couple days on and a couple days off. It is a very, very difficult job. They earn that money. When you're out in the open seas, hell, I could still drive one of these things. But when you're bringing it in, the tides, the wind, the weather, things that are happening all around you, other vessels moving around, it's a very, very difficult job. And I don't see them going away anytime soon.
Last comment before we get to halftime. I was just thinking, I picture that like the dude from Big Lebowski, right? It's just this guy with all this knowledge. He's just kind of hanging out. Hey, Timmy, we need you to take care of things. He walks out, smokes a grit, throws it on the ground, jumps in there, does his job in 2 seconds, and he's just like legend, right?
Yeah, well, imagine these guys get on a little boat, and they drive it alongside the ship, and they throw a ladder over the side, a rope ladder, and then the waves are moving, so they get the pilot boat on the right timing. People die doing this, and you got to jump on the pilot ladder, and you're halfway up the ship where the pilot opening is, and then you bring it in. It's crazy. People that do it, they work for free for a number of years learning the ropes, or very little money with room and board. Mm-hmm. You got to know your crap, man. And you have to be very calm, because crap happens all the time on board the ships. You have to be insanely confident in your ability to bring this in. It's a very special person that does that kind of job.
Yeah. There's a movie in there somewhere.
Probably, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a harbor pilot depicted in a film before. It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Well, next show we'll have to figure out who would play that role.
Oh, me, 100%. Like chubby, gray hair, bit of a smart ass. Yeah, I would be perfect for that kind of.
Yeah, that's
not
exactly
the job. I would be very bad at the job, boys. But I could absolutely do the movie. The people that I know
play one.
Yeah, the folks that I know that are harbor pilots, they're a very special, elevated kind of professional. They're really amazing.
Good. Well, I'll be the one to take us into halftime, brought to us by Cap Logistics. Keenan, who's part of that team, pushes the buttons and makes us look good. And it's awesome that he's here. The
Is it though?
trifecta. What's that?
Is it though? Did you say awesome? I don't know.
I think it is. Yeah, we both got our quarter zips and our collars and stuff. Man, we're like brothers from another mother. Anyway, halftime brought to you by Cap Logistics. Thanks for their support. Pete, what you got?
Well, ours are a little intertwined, but mine has to do with horror movies. So it is the Halloween season. I myself am not really a horror film kind of a guy. My daughter and her friends love them. And one of the things that they love to do is to watch the classic ones that we had as teenagers, Doug. So when we were in high school and we would see Friday the 13th and, all those films that were Halloween and all that crap, they think they're hysterical. They don't think they're scary at all. They think that they're maybe a little tense, but there's nothing about them scary because they grew up watching like Saw, watching gory, terrifying films that I refuse to watch. So my question is really two-part. What is your favorite scary movie? And there's ones to me that I think are funnier more than they're scary. And then what is the one that scared the hell out of you the most?
So the one that was, I'd say Amityville Horror was a pretty good one. And the other one was Poltergeist because it was just, and I think I made mention that on a show, but that one, Carrie Ann, oof, that freaked me out. Yeah. So those would be my two. Keenan?
Yeah, not super into the horror, even the jump ones. And sometimes the comedy's not enough. Tried to watch some Jamie Foxx, like Down on His Luck Vampire Hunter on Netflix. It's a couple years old type of movie. And you could tell it was funny, but they were also doing like the body contortion, like sick, weird movements. Like we couldn't make it past like 3 minutes into it, even though I could tell it was going to be funny. Not my cup of tea. So yeah, even though I grew up with those Saw and Hostel, those movies are awful. I don't want to watch those ever again. A Pit of Needles, like why? No. And like with Hostel, yes, human trafficking is a thing. Do I want to watch it as entertainment? No. To me, the peak type of Halloween movie is spooky, but mostly funny to your point, and not like actually bad. So like The Mummy, Brendan Fraser, 1999, peak Halloween movie.
That's a great movie. Yeah.
Nice.
I loved Scary Movie, the comedy.
That's funny. Yeah.
It was very funny because it was goofy. They didn't want you to take it seriously, right? And then I'm with you, Doug. Amityville Horror messed me up. I saw it way too young. But the scariest one for me is The Exorcist. I really, really hated that movie. And I've seen it a number of times. And every time I do, everyone's like, isn't that scary? I'm like, I don't know why. It just scares the hell out of me, man. So I will not be spending what I guess is now called spooky season. They've wrecked that too, these people. I will not be watching any horror films on my own. I'm sorry. No, that won't happen.
Well, Keenan and I are going to tag team this one. And like I said, or like you said, it's all related to the holiday spirit. So Skelly, Skelly, is a hot seller. And I know every single person that's listening to this show has seen one. It's the 12-foot skeleton that's sold at Home Depot. $300. Everybody's got one. It was originally supposed to be 10 feet, and they dropped to like these speakers go to 11 type of thing, and they bumped it up to 12 feet. And it's everywhere. That's one of the best-selling items in Home Depot anytime during the year, any commodity, anything. And I have certainly seen them all over the place. I didn't know if you guys have seen it. And you got kind of a funny comment on it, Keenan. But $300, like, I don't know where you put that thing. I don't know if it's made of plastic or whatever. You fold that thing up and stick it in your basement or your garage. You're going to pull it out. It's going to get all messed up. But I guess if it's a skeleton and you snap a bone, you just tape it up and maybe it looks a little more creepy for next year. But have you seen those? And what's your take on them, guys?
Go ahead, Keenan.
Absolutely. I have seen them. My neighborhood really gets into the Halloween season and starts putting up decorations very early. So we've seen them around for a while now. They are massive, and the desire's real. I hear the demand for our household to get a 12-foot skeleton, or not only one, but two. Because once you have two, you could create all sorts of activities and imply playing badminton or whatever. You could rig up two and get the attention and pass on a little bit of seasonal enjoyment there. We currently have a skeleton, but alas, it's only 5 feet, and it's nice, but it's not as impactful as a 12-foot one. So the 5-foot one is made out of polypropylene. I don't know if you guys are into plastics, but that's the best plastic, where it's not estrogenic and things for like food safe stuff. It's also very high temperature proof, so it could be out in the sun, being a skeleton in Colorado, where I'm sure it will get baked pretty hard. But yeah, it's strong. We'll probably end up getting some at some point in the future. This also tied into, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I've been seeing that Halloween as a holiday is now growing as far as shipping comes in. And I wonder if these giant skeletons are a part of that, as well as all the other kitsch and decorations and things moving in. But apparently it's becoming more of a shipping holiday, which is, normally more associated with big Christmas peak type stuff. But apparently Halloween's on the up and up.
Yeah.
It's madness, man. I had a friend named Keith Wolford. He lives out in Western New Hampshire. He starts putting up his decorations like in August. And people come from all over New Hampshire to check out his Halloween display, and he has to have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It's like local news covers it. It's out of control. It's out of control. Screws up traffic, and it's his thing. Like, it's his thing. I'd never seen the skelly before. I just looked at it a moment ago. 12 foot tall, with big spooky eyes, and you know what? It's reasonably priced. It's like $100-something, right? It's not that expensive.
No, I think. In my research, they were pushing $299. So I don't know if you have the.
It took me one Google search to find knockoff versions that you can buy on Temu. So, just saying, they're out there. They have a 5-foot model and a 12-foot model, which could also be fun, Keenan. You could have like the 12-foot ones who are clearly in charge, and then the 5-foot ones that are like little demonic soldiers all around them. Yeah, I can see how that could be a lot of fun. I don't want anyone to ever ring my doorbell, ever. Like, you ring my doorbell, I'm just going to say, come back with a warrant, and I'm going to go back to whatever I was doing. Don't ring my doorbell. So I don't really care for trick-or-treaters at all. I want to live somewhere where the idea of coming to my house terrifies them. So that will be, I will not be decorating with skellies on my front yard. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll just leave it at that. That's the happy note of Halloween that Pete brings to the table. Brought to you by Cap Logistics. We appreciate it. KB, we appreciate everything you do for us. So we're going to end this thing with...
Doug appreciates
What's that?
Doug appreciates everything that Keenan does for us.
Of course. Yeah. He's got the dimmer switch, man. He could just say, these guys are a bunch of assholes, and just dimmer it off. and then it goes to the test pattern like it did way back in the day.
Test pattern, or just what's fun too is the implied swearing. Just add in some beeps over different things you guys are saying. You could just change the context. It's fun.
Dude, drop some in there. I'm all
I can't
in.
believe we've never done that already.
I probably should.
Yeah.
Well, my comments on this last one are just going to be a tirade. Anyway, Pete, we're going to do one topic. We're going to do your second topic, and then we'll go from there. So fire it up, man. So
for me, I have a lot of conversations these days about if there is a dramatic increase in tariffs out of China. We're hearing anything from 30% to 60% under a Trump presidency. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, the outcome of most of these conversations is we're going to Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Malaysia, and we're just going to sling it, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but the problem we have now is there's not enough ships calling that part of the world. There's not enough aircraft leaving that part of the world. The ports are not of such a size and scope that they can handle that. And now what people are seeing, as they are even now moving production to these parts of the world, they can't find space on ships. Their stuff's getting rolled. The prices are significantly higher than they are to China. And it's getting harder and harder to get this stuff into the country because of it. This is one of those unintended consequences of increasing tariffs to try to push people towards more politically aligned countries. It's all well and good until you realize you can't get your crap out of the country.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing about India, right? Lots of labor, lots of people live in India, and everybody says that's new. I've even made comments about the growth of India. I think the exact words were like, "Don't sleep on India," right? But the infrastructure is the same thing. You can't just drop. I mean, think about rerouting air freight from DIA, right, from Denver's airport or any large metro area, and you're going to send it to like Colorado Springs, right? And you just don't have it. I mean, there's a lot of examples of major airports and smaller ones within an hour or two. Sounds good. Hey, the weather's bad in Denver. Let's land all this stuff down in Colorado Springs. No infrastructure, no revenue outbound to reposition. You can't get enough freight in there. So if that's a like and kind analogy, you're spot on. In the effort to do the right thing, the capacity of where we're going for sourcing is not at the level that we have out of China. So 100%.
I certainly hope that ocean carriers reposition themselves to be more effective, and they probably will. But that still means the port has to deal with that. So you're going to have congestion. One way or the other, it's going to end up having to fix itself by increasing the infrastructure of that country in order to deal with the outcome, which India has been working really hard to do, but they're still not there.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard quite a few companies and people talking about whether politically or even costs now, as China is no longer as low cost as it once was, people looking to make their supply chains more resilient, lower the cost, all that. So I have heard a lot about Vietnam and Cambodia. But yeah, that's interesting. It's all kind of coming to a head now where that shift has maybe been so fast where maybe some carriers have adjusted, maybe they can adjust. But yeah, to your point, Pete, there's physical limitations on port sizes and things. And if there's a dramatic shift in demand there, they might not have the time to build. Not super aware of the ports and what they look like in Vietnam and Cambodia. I know they're already exporting, but I doubt they're as big as the ports in China, which Shanghai, Hong Kong are massive. So they're probably not that level.
Yeah. My advice to people is sit down with your forwarder partner and say, we're thinking about doing this before you do it. I don't know if the transportation person will be asked about it. It's probably someone in procurement who's like, we're moving to Vietnam. And then 6 months later, you learn about it. But sit down with your transportation partner and say, how will this affect us? Give me an idea 6 months, 12 months out, what the costs are going to be like. Walk me through it, talk me through it. And then hopefully you can go back and have a civilized conversation with someone about how complicated it'll be to get it out.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. That's a great topic to have our listeners make some comments whenever they see this post, because lots of comments, ideas, suggestions. So it's a great way to end with that advice, Pete, that you just dropped on us. So that, I can't believe it. I'm looking at the clock. It's like 28 minutes and there's 3 of us talking and it's under 30 minutes. That is amazing. Kudos to you guys. And kudos to all the listeners out there. We appreciate you tuning in to Global Trade. If it's happening across the world, you just got a good dose of it on this show. We're going to be talking about it. It'll always have a forward-leaning perspective. We're going to talk about what could and what will happen, not what did. Those are the hacks. Those are the people. You can always talk about what already happened. We put our necks out there and talk about what's going to happen. So that's it. Gentlemen, Keenan, Pete, thanks so much. Hope you have a great week.
Take it easy, everybody. Happy Halloween.
You too. Thanks. Take care.
Just don't knock on my door. All right, see you. Bye.